Today's episode is brought to you by our local sponsors, Ravenwood Incense and Fragrance Producers, Betsy Cornell, licensed massage therapist, and Courtney Wiggins, social justice activist seeking equality for all. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome to Ask a Witch, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. Join our host as she discusses various aspects of witchcraft and spirituality with intellectual and authentic members of the metaphysical community. This podcast is made possible by Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary, a one-stop witch shop nestled in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. And now your host, the bewitching Bellamy Black.
Hi, and welcome to Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. In this podcast, we answer a variety of questions sent in by listeners like you. So thank you for your listener letters. With me today is Claire. Claire is a friend of ours at the shop here. And we've already spoken with her husband, Marco, who is our Peruvian shaman, or Paco, that we talked to on our first episode. So this is the partner of Marco. This is Claire, who is very much her own woman.
Yes.
And her own person and has her own stories to tell you. We brought her on today because our listener question dealt with thinking about magic from like an ADHD or neurodivergent perspective.
Yeah.
And this is something Claire's familiar with.
Yes, very much so.
Thank you for being here, Claire.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure having you on the couch today.
Yay. It's cozy.
Good. I know. I love this couch so much. I don't know if I've ever talked about this couch, but I'm going to gush about the couch for a second.
Yeah.
So I got this couch for $35
Nice.
at the Habitat Restore.
Yep.
It is down-filled and luxurious.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like an old granny's carpet bag. And I love it so much.
Yeah. It's great.
I put the couch here for a reason. And the reason is that I want people to feel comfortable and feel like they can just chill in the shop whenever. And so thank you for chilling on the couch with me today.
I have chilled on it when the shop's open too.
I have slept on this couch. I love this couch.
Yeah.
I love this couch. So today our tea of the day is Hocus Focus, which I thought would be perfect for our neurodivergent episode.
Yay!
It is put together for attention and then memory retention as well. This is a tea that I highly recommend for like college students who've got testing to do. If you're have a bit of a spicy brain and need to focus on something and you just can't. It includes yerba mate, which is caffeinated, also really good for focus, rosemary, oat straw, and ginkgo. So all of those things kind of create that happy space in our brain. And then it has turmeric and black pepper and sage. And then it has, its secret ingredient is lion's mane. So lion's mane is a mushroom that is excellent for focus and clarity, memory retention, all those things. So that is what we're drinking today.
It's good.
Good. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's one of my more subtle teas. Some of my subtlety, get it? But it's some of my teas are real robust in flavor, but this is just, you can drink it.
Yeah.
You can drink it down.
Yeah, you could really like pound it down while studying.
Pound it down. Yep. Yeah, it would make a nice iced tea too. It'd drink real easy. So.
And I'll say, like, some people don't like rosemary. Maybe it's too medicinal. It does not at all in this.
Yeah.
I mean, I would take it even so I like rosemary, but like it doesn't have that. It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really pleasant.
Good. I'm glad you enjoy it. I enjoy it too. All right. Well, I think we're ready for our listener letter.
My lady, a message has arrived for you.
So here's a letter. Here we go. Dear Bellamy Black, I am disabled and on the spectrum. It's very honest and forthright just to start off there. I want to practice magic, but I am struggling to focus my attention. I know meditation is really important, but I find I really struggle with turning my brain off and just being silent. When I research different magic methodologies, I can only really find information for neurotypical brain types. While I am able to utilize some of these techniques, I find most of them to be challenging at best. I was wondering if you had any insight on some good resources for a neurodivergent witch such as myself. It's hard not seeing any resources readily available for someone like me. Am I not supposed to be a magical person?
Ugh.
Sincerely, can't sit still in Cadillac.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself craving more connection? Are you wanting to experience more emotional, physical, and spiritual intimacy with others? Or maybe you're longing for a better relationship with your own body and soul and unique purpose in this life. Belonging looks different for everyone, but the paths we take to get there, the path where we feel welcome and wanted in the world, is very similar. Katie May is a guide in the art of belonging, and she has been guiding people along those paths for years, through workshops, retreats, and one-on-one couples counseling. You can join her at Blessed Be for the Art of Belonging on Saturday, June 29th. On Saturday, July 27th, she'll be hosting Coco Relating, where she'll be sharing how to create more conscious, organic, committed, and open relationships. And on Wednesday, August 28th, for Blowjoy, where she'll show you how to take more pleasure in connecting with your partner and improve emotional and physical intimacy in your relationships. You can also check out her website for some free resources, coaching opportunities, and to keep up on the latest offerings at www.katiemazing.com. That's KATIEMAEZING.com, Katie Mazing. Can't make these classes? Check out blessedbt.com for more options.
Sincerely, can't sit still in Cadillac.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. You're already magical.
Yes.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Yes, you are supposed to be a magical person.
Yeah.
You are already a magical person. And in
Yes.
fact, you're top of
Yes.
my list as magical people. Top of my list.
Yeah.
So before we get into this question here, let's introduce Claire to you a little bit. Claire, will you tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey and how you came to be here today?
Yeah. So I actually first just say a little bit too about this neurodiversity. So I have ADHD, but I was not diagnosed until I was an adult. But I was like a sensitive kid and really struggled. And that probably is an indication of some magical sensitivity as well. But like very not a family where that is a thing that we talk about or acknowledge, very like scientific, doctors, PhDs and stuff. So like I just didn't fit. And then my husband, who you already had on, has been spiritual. It's like loud for him. It's been loud for him since he was a kid. And we've been together since I was 15. So like it's a pretty big part of my life that I've been next to a person for whom it's quite loud. And so I always felt pretty insignificant, like it didn't work, it didn't match for me. Because it's much subtler for me. But like in a room, I often know what everyone is feeling.
Sure.
And I did always.
Yeah.
I know sort of like what to say. Some of this, there's like this for me, a combination of the ADHD brain, which is like about pattern recognition, and being really fast, and some of it is sensitivity and I can't tease out what it is. Like, where is it spirit? Is it this? Like, it just is a knowing.
Sure.
But I can't be like, aha, spirit said this. I'm like, I just know this. And so I think I feel like this listener in some ways about that. I got more serious sometime after Mark did his shamanic training. And again, it's all very subtle. At some point, I set up an ancestry altar. I had this sadness about my grandma, who again was like a doctor and a pediatrician when women weren't that. And I feel this connection. She passed when I was in high school, and I feel this like indebtedness to her and connection to her. And yet I was like, well, she would reject spirituality, right? And so Mark's like, put together an ancestor altar, like try. Yeah. And so I do. She's there, like we talk, and like that's been really helpful. And I miss her all the time. So I feel like for me, it's this like straddling of things. Like Mark will talk about like how like if you understand science and the universe, like spirituality and energy makes sense. And like it doesn't quite that doesn't make sense to me. It just is a knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my practice it's subtler. It's very relationship based. It's individual. Right now for me, it's a lot about discovering my own sovereignty and my own power and like honoring that.
Yeah.
Which is something as like a parent and a femme person has not really been accessible to me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that resonates with our listener here too.
I have so many thoughts and advice.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's why I brought you on here.
Yeah.
So I know that you started doing shamanic training with Margot too.
Yes. I felt like I really needed to do the work that you do when you're on a shamanic path, or when you're on, I think, different lineages paths. There's a lot of internal work that you're doing.
Yeah, a lot of shadow work too.
Yes.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I need to do this. I am ready for this. Like, that's what I need. I don't, he feels very called to be a shaman. That's not the word that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But the work of the journey is really important. And then I pull from other lineages and other groups of people as well. Yeah, I want to like study everything and go deep with it. So I haven't quite found a word for like somewhere along the lines of like storyteller, wise woman. I feel really called on like sort of a one-on-one basis, and there's something around storytelling and like, I don't have a name for it yet. I mean, witch, obviously.
Yeah.
But like something more specific, I'm not sure. Like I'm still on that path, right, to figure that out.
I think that you don't really need the label for it, sometimes, and we talk about this kind of often, but like how the label can be helpful in some ways, because then you can work towards something or try to emulate a certain behavior, or learn more, delve deeper into that title.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, you're just Claire.
Yeah.
Rich Claire, mom Claire, wife Claire.
Yeah.
All the things but you're Claire.
Yeah.
So I think that, delving into who that is for you is like, what a cool title to obtain, because you get to decide.
Yeah. So I do art under the name Roxy Loon.
Yeah.
So Roxy was my grandma's name.
Yeah.
And I've been leaning into like that. It's artwork. I mean, I feel like I'm finally starting to claim the artist title, but for me, artist and spirit are the same.
Yeah.
Like they're very connected. So
absolutely.
Somewhere along there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Thanks.
Well, let's get into, you already have things busting at the seams ready to say to our listeners. So why don't you just go ahead. What do you got to say to Can't Sit Still in Cadillac?
Yeah. So like, when you read about meditation, I feel like it's like, all right, you just clear your mind and you're there. But if you have a busy brain, no. So for me, there's been points in my life where like, in order to calm my brain, I need to hit, I think what it is like every sense. So I would like find a stretching pose that worked. It was always a chest opener for me, because that's where I'm real tense. I need like heat and a weighted blanket. I have like binaural beats on headphones, so I'm getting like weird noises in both ears.
Yeah.
And I need all of that to just quiet my brain enough, because it's giving my brain enough sensory input that it's not like seeking other things. It doesn't get distracted.
Yeah.
So that's one avenue, is think about your senses. There are meditation practices like walking a labyrinth.
Yep.
So yeah, where you can increase your sensory experience can really help. I think what I feel like meditation and mindfulness is about, it's about becoming like centered in your body and in this moment. And so what does it take for you to do that? I think you could do it like some people like, I don't know, those Zen gardens where you're like carefully drawing things out.
Yeah, or coloring.
Yes.
Coloring's a good one. Or tangles. Have you seen people draw tangles? There's like a girl on TikTok who draws tangles, and I could just watch it for hours, right? I find that meditation chains can be helpful too. Like, so they say to like clear your mind, but what's the purpose you're trying to get out of your meditation, right? So I want to be peaceful. Peaceful makes me think of tranquility. Tranquility makes me think of calm. Calm makes me think of a river. A river makes me think of. So you can embrace that hyper focused brain and add those different things in there until you get to a point where you're like, I have nothing else to think about.
Yeah.
I did it. I cleared it out. I cleared the drawer out of all the different thoughts that I have. And then you can just sit with that and sit with that feeling. So it's like embracing that aspect of your brain. There's also grounding techniques where you can think of, what are the 5 things that you can see? What are the 4 things you can hear? What are the 3 things you can see or touch or
taste? You go through all the senses.
Yeah. And so you find that, and then you kind of just do breathing practices with those grounding techniques. Talking about mindfulness and meditation, there is a book that I recommend, and I was going to recommend it later, but we'll do it right now. It's called Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, and he's done a couple other books recently too, but I love this book because it goes through, 30 to 40 different exercises for meditation and mindfulness, and each one builds on the next one, and so I really like that book. I highly recommend that book. And we'll link it in the show notes too. But I just love that you can pick and choose the different practices, especially if you have a brain that's not neurotypical. Yeah. And I say that with like what's typical, but yeah. So finding that and working that way. Do you find that you struggle to find methodologies that work well for you, that like in the information and resources that are available?
Oh yeah, I like read everything and hate everything. So one of the things my brain really likes, and this is like very specific, is I want to read everything on a topic and then parse it down myself. So I've been like trying to delve into tarot and other forms of divination, but I want like I know that like it's gonna really kick for me when I make my own deck of symbology. Like it needs to be mine.
Sure.
So then I have to like read a lot about it and think a lot about like all the archetypes that exist. I'm always thinking really broadly about like I'm I'm white. I don't have like a specific cultural lineage to lean upon. And I always want to be careful that I'm not like appropriating from other people. But I also think that there are some universalities. And so I'm always fascinated by reading like a whole lot of different things and then feeling what like seems to me personally to resonate, to be universal, and pulling that out and working with that. Yeah. So I don't find any resource. Some resources are okay, but like I go deep. I want all of it.
You want all of it.
Yeah. I can't say that any one thing has ever really done it.
Yeah. I think that that's something that can be overwhelming for somebody who has like I like to say spicy brain.
No, I love it. I've got a friend who says that.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's just, there's so much going on, right? It's just like pop, 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 all the time.
And like you said with the labels, like ADHD is this like psychiatry diagnosis. Yeah. There's barriers there. Within autism, there's a lot of like self-identity.
Yeah. Well, and it's a spectrum, right? Yeah. So like you have like far end can't, like maybe need help with daily living and things like that. Maybe can't hold a job, things like that, that are really struggling. And then there's people that are on the lower end of the spectrum who, and I think like different various levels of ADHD fall into that. For sure. But it can be like, oh yeah, I'm a little ADD. I can't like sit still, or I have to hyper focus on something. But then there's like, where it can incapacitate you, where it can take over your life too. So it's all on a spectrum. We're all on the spectrum. Yes. Really. I mean, so that's why I kind of like scoff at the neurotypical brain type, because everybody kind of has something. Yeah. That, like, we're all on a spectrum somewhere on that line. And just finding, like, I think that the conversation about neurodivergence and autism and kind of embracing these symptoms that, everybody sees on TikTok and Instagram and all these things, they're like, oh yeah, me too. Yes. Right? And so it's like, oh, so what you're doing is identifying these behaviors or symptoms that you have, and now you're going to try to find a way to work with that in your life and to utilize it in a positive way. Hopefully. Versus a negative way. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. I would say too, the other thing is, I think if you can find ways to figure out how to work with yourself, how to work with your quirkiness, your individuality, the way your brain works and your body works, and you listen to and honor that, that's literally magic. Yes. And that is practicing magic.
Yes. Yeah, it is, because that's what everybody's trying to do, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to understand their own spiritual path, their own spiritual journey. You have to understand mind, body, and spirit in
Yeah.
order to do that. Mind and body are what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And then how it incorporates into spirit.
Yeah.
I think it is important to be self-reflective in this, especially when you're faced with challenges that deal with focus or how your brain works or how you're able to accomplish tasks. You mentioned that in order for you to do this cool task of making your own tarot deck, and like you have to research it all.
I really don't.
Right?
This is a
You
trick,
don't.
but
Yeah.
I want to.
Yeah, but you want to.
Yeah.
And so like I think that being conscious of these goals that you have for yourself and trying to decide if there's bites that you can take off that are a little easier to chew, right?
Yeah.
So maybe instead of doing and maybe this doesn't work for you, right?
Yeah.
But like maybe instead of researching all the things all
Yeah.
the time, you look at just one card and be
Yeah.
like, this is what I want to do for this one card.
I've been thinking about that, about starting like doing some individual card studies. That's been feeling possible lately.
Oh, good.
But like a year ago, I was like, no, I just have to research
All
all
of it.
divination, and then I'll make my own. And I was like, wow. And then I have an artistic background and graphic design background. So I was like, oh, and then I have to make them perfect. And this is a trap that I get myself into, which is delaying the actual like work in the spirit and getting all in the head and not in the like spirit and in the moment. I realize that.
Yeah.
Like even as I say it, I'm like, haha, that's that thing I'm doing.
I think that's something too, is that we realize what we're doing in the moment.
Yeah.
I would say I also have some tendencies that lean towards like that hyperfixation, hyperfocus. I'm very type A personality, so I have to, if I start something, I have to get it done, and it has to be perfect, and I have to get it done today. Like I am the person that stays up till 1 a.m. finishing the project that I started.
Yep.
Because I can't sleep if I don't, and so realizing like setting boundaries for myself, like I am going to stop at this time so that I can get the rest that I need. And you know what? The project's always there the next day. It is. It's there.
Yeah.
And it's waiting for me. And I have the same passion that I had for it the night before until I don't anymore. And then it sits in a box of doom in the back of my closet. But eventually, I'm going to have that passion again, and I'm going to want to finish that. That's how my quilt that I've been working on, that's my quilt story.
Yeah.
I love it, and then I'm like, I'm done with this.
So, yes, both of my kids now have like an ADHD diagnosis, but like the warning signs are there. And my youngest would be like, no, we have to do this right now because I might forget later that I wanted to do it and then I won't do it. And so when you're saying like, oh, it'll be there for you later, I feel like for some people there can be a fear like, but if I don't do it now, I'll lose it and then it's gone forever.
Yeah.
And I've been working on having patience with myself that it'll come back, or if it's really important, like write it down, take some notes. That's what we would do with our youngest, was that like, okay, we'll write it down so that tomorrow morning, because it's bedtime now, we're not doing it right now.
Yeah.
But that's good for your brain too. Like
Well, it's a mindfulness activity.
Yeah.
It's a mindfulness. I understand what I'm feeling right now. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to assess it in the morning.
Yeah.
And those are techniques that we teach ourselves, as we learn through our diagnoses and like things like that. But those are acts of mindfulness. That's acts of spirituality. It's acts of caring for yourself, is by, understanding that your body has limitations.
Yeah.
And your brain wants you to go, go, go. But you have to respect your body and what it can handle in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain will be clearer later, too.
Yeah.
Potentially.
My first thing I ever did where I really felt mindfulness was I worked at a horse farm and I was cleaning stalls and then sweeping the floors. And those to me felt like meditative moments.
Yes.
My brain could just sort of be in the moment. And so like, yeah, my first sort of way of finding mindfulness and meditation was shoveling shit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
I think, that's something else I wanted to talk about here. We just did a book coven, and we finished a book called The Witch of Portobello by Paulo Coelho, who's one of my favorite authors ever.
Yay.
Ever. Have you ever read any of his stuff? So he's famous for his books, The Pilgrimage and The Alchemist. And essentially, they're both like journey stories where he's on a journey. It's fictional, but it's kind of written from his own perspective. And The Pilgrimage in particular is based off of this Christian like pilgrimage like through Israel.
Yep.
And you walk the path of Jesus that he took, like when he took a 40-day walk. So it's like this whole journey that you take. So I love recommending that book to anybody who's like, I'm coming off a Christian background, I'm spiritual, but I don't really know. Like that's a great book for that. But anyway, so he wrote this book called The Witch of Portobello. And it talks about this woman and how she takes these seemingly mundane activities and finds meditation and spirit and power within doing acts like calligraphy.
Yeah.
You know, and how she can pour herself and pour her magic into this act.
Yes.
That is, you know, seemingly mundane, but she finds her spirit and finds her power in that act, and also through dancing. So this somatic, body encompassing activity that is so huge and so beneficial. And they say that like and actually like in the book, it's fictional, right? But she like puts people in trances by the way that she's dancing, because she just has such a strong, powerful connection to spirit through that activity. And I think you mentioned this already, is like finding something that, you know, embraces all of your senses to help you find that mindfulness aspect. Super important.
I think early on I thought mindfulness and meditation was all about the head and the brain. And I think that's a real trap, because at least I believe like we're incarnated into a body. We have to like honor the body we're in. And it's actually when you're all in your head, that is when you can get really trapped in worrying. I'm thinking like a mouse on a wheel kind of thing, or hamster on a wheel. But then like when you get into the body, it tells you what you need often. You gotta listen. And it's really hard. I don't think like many people have jobs where they're like, they have to step out of their body. Either you're standing and you're exhausted and you have to ignore that your feet are like throbbing, or you're sitting at a computer and that's all visual and like on the computer and it's not in the body. And so, you know, on our phones as well, right? Like there's
absolutely.
Society very much is like, oh, like forget about the body. Except for when you're working out for health.
Yes. Which you have to do.
But yeah, I think, you know, that's a trap. So it's a
trap, right?
I've been recently really working on and only really finding some real growth with somatic stuff. Dancing for me is like one that, it's. I posted on Instagram. I'm having some like rough stuff, you know, personally at times with some grief and burnout and stuff. And I was like, I just want to dance under the stars with a whole group of people and feel both small and connected to everything. Like that's what I was really craving.
Yeah.
It's not like the season for it.
Right. It's 20 degrees outside.
Yeah. But we'll get there. And
we'll get there
to do that. But like that's for me, when I was a kid, we'd go to these outdoor festivals and I would just dance maybe at the edge of the thing. And that dancing, I'd lose myself in the music. And I'm an introvert, but like I felt so connected. Even though I'm in this group of people. And it wasn't a performance where I was being viewed. I was just existing in my body and we were all connecting together.
Right.
So yeah.
It's kind of like a silent disco.
I love a silent disco.
I love a silent disco. So for those who don't know, a silent disco is where you go to a venue usually and they have headphones available for everybody. And everybody puts headphones on, and usually there's channels that you can click to. So there'll be like maybe like a live performance, a DJ, there's a radio station, you know, something, and you can hit the buttons to switch. And when
control your volume.
And you can control your volume. And everybody has headphones on. Not everybody's on the same channel, which is awesome. Right? So like everybody's dancing. Like maybe they're dancing to the live band that's playing. But if you switch, you can see who else is dancing to the DJ, because their dance is different.
Oh gosh.
Than the live performance.
Right. That's life.
That's like so fun.
That's like literally symbolic of how we are right now.
Yeah. So just like clicking and then you're in this group or this group mentality. It's really awesome. I love a silent disco.
Need more.
Yeah. And then you can just dance. And you just dance.
Yeah.
One of my first exposures to people dancing for therapy was Grey's Anatomy.
Really?
Yeah. Which is kind of ironic, but they're surgeon residents, they're going through all the trials and tribulations, and they lose people, and there's drama because Shonda Rhimes is great at that. And then there's one time where Meredith Grey, the main character, just grabs her people and they're like, let's just dance. Like, we just gotta dance. And they are, they always go through really hard, traumatic, but like they're just dancing.
Right.
And I take that practice with my family.
Yeah.
And so when we're having a hard time, we just dance party. Like, we just need a dance party. And maybe it's not when we're having a hard time, but it just dance. Like, just go dance.
Mm-hmm. We dance partied when the kids were little. It was so awesome. They won't. One will, one won't.
Yeah, it's but to see my son dance, who is very logical and very analytical, and when I say go put your shoes on, he goes, "They're not shoes, they're boots."
Yep.
Go get in the car. It's not a car, it's a truck. Very, very straightforward. Has to be right about everything. To see him dance brings my heart so much joy.
Yeah.
And like your story, they attended a music festival with me last summer, and to see my son and my husband, who are the exact same person, dancing and being silly and having fun in the field, just dancing to music like nobody was there, was one of the most therapeutic and healing things that I have ever seen for myself. To see them go through that was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think having those physical activities, I know that people recommend like different things too that can help bring you into your space, is like tapping or like touching or holding yourself and reminding yourself that you're there. Pressing is really cool too, especially if you're like angry or frustrated, if you like push on something, never to hurt yourself and never to hurt anybody else, but just finding that space in your body again, just like squeezing or touching can kind of bring you back to center too.
So I got a book that's called Burnout. And I will put the link in. I will try and remember the author's name.
Great.
I got that like 2 years before I officially burned out and quit my job, and I was reading it. But she talks about like the psychology, the body, and I think her metaphor is around like you're like attacked by a lion. So like you're out, like our like ancestors, right? You have this like lion and you outrun it, you get back to the village, and then like they all maybe kill it, or you all have this celebration around it. And our bodies actually need ways to disperse the stress and energy.
Yeah.
If you see a cat, if they have something like happen, and then they shake it off, or a dog, right? They shake it off.
Yeah.
We don't shake things off.
We don't shake things off at all.
Like, we need to shake.
We carry things for decades.
Yeah.
Decades.
Yeah. Yes. And so for me, and some alone and also in community.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like a lion attacked anyone.
Right.
And I don't think you even in a space need to know what each person is shaking off. But
right. Oh yeah, you don't.
But yeah, that is really powerful. I'm trying to bring a lot more of that into my life right now.
Yeah.
After years of not.
Right. Well, and for parents that have kids that are, going through some
School's really hard right now for
tough.
kids.
Yeah.
They're really like, it's COVID. It's everything they see. They hear the news.
Yeah. Their parents are struggling. The economy, and kids are sensitive, more sensitive than we are.
Yeah.
So they're really struggling too. But there's things that you can encourage in them with their somatic behavior. Like kids, so often they're like twitching or dancing or tapping or kicking your back of your chair or whatever. And there's parenting, right?
Yeah.
Like, please don't kick my chair.
Yeah.
And expecting respect.
Yeah.
Because you give respect, you get respect. But there's also there's times that my daughter is just like bouncing off the walls and she's dancing and she's doing all these things. And that's her body is naturally needing to do that. It's naturally shaking things off.
Yes.
And for generations, we've been telling kids, like, stop moving.
Yeah.
Sit still. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to move. And so we didn't.
Yeah.
And now we're still still harboring those things, and we still can't shake those things off. So, I think that physical activity is a huge, huge aspect. And thank you for bringing this up, because it wasn't even on my list, but I think you're absolutely right that's.
So it wasn't in the question. There was no mention of sensory stuff, but I'm like, I've only as an adult learned about like sensory processing, which is like comorbid with like autism and ADHD, but also can be independent. For some kids, it's a big deal. Like both my kids have had to go see like an occupational therapist. Those people have been my favorite. They've like taught me about my own body, and like turns out I need to sit in a hammock a couple of times a week. So like I have a hammock in my house now. I need to swing. I can't swing on a swing set as an adult, I get motion sick
Sick.
now.
Yeah, me too.
So like a little hammock gives me that. If you think about what you did as a kid on a playground, you were regulating yourself.
Yeah.
And so like
Spinning.
maybe you still need some of that.
Yeah. I love to spin.
So the same way we need food and water and enough sleep, we also need enough and the right amount of sensory input. And I would just like encourage anyone to play and pursue that and see what helps you feel better.
Yeah.
That's been like important in my life.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I sent you an article.
Yes, you did.
There's an article that I read, and actually I listened to somebody speak about it first, but then I searched up the article, and
I was worried a little when I first saw it. I was like, uh-oh. But you've got some important notes, so I think that's good.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to me, and the article itself was kind of confusing in how it was written, but I took some things away from it that are really important and powerful. And the question that I think that this answers is, am I supposed to be a magical person? And so I think that in Western society, what we do is if we take people that are, and this article talks about people with mental illness, behavioral issues, and schizophrenia, and psychosis issues.
Yes.
So those are all, those are extreme factors to a point. Again, everything's on a spectrum, right? So actually one of my favorite customers that comes in here is schizophrenic, and you would never know. Like he's just, like people think of like straitjackets and padded room and like that's where you belong. And that's what Western society has told us, is that this person is quote unquote crazy.
Broken.
We're going to strap them down and keep them still and make them sit in this room with nothing. And that's going to make them better.
Yeah.
We've already talked about how that's completely opposite of how we should be treating these people. They need to move.
Yeah.
They need to move their bodies, and they need to have sensory input that is going to be stimulating in a positive way for them.
And like believed and heard and validated.
Yes. And listened to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this article talks about this West African tribe of the Dagara people. And it's written by, or it's narrated essentially by this Dr. Malidoma Patrice Some, who worked with this tribe in the 80s. And I believe he is African himself. But he was talking about how these different tribes look at somebody born who is extra sensitive as essentially a missing link between our like civilized world and our spiritual world. And how, so they take, when people are born and they're extra sensitive or have what we would call like autistic, symptoms or mentalities, or schizophrenic or behavioral issues or mental health issues, instead of saying this person needs medicated and we need to dull down their senses, they say, oh, this person is our connection.
Yeah.
This person needs to be emulated and celebrated in our community. And so they essentially, they say, this is the next healer in our community, or this is the next shaman in our community. And they make them an essential part of their community.
Yeah.
Which, like, how cool is that?
Yes.
That's so cool. That's so, like, that's taking, so maybe they hear voices, or maybe they have, like, these like, extra outbursts or what have you. But that's what spirit is trying to teach their tribe, and that's what spirit is trying to say to the people around them. And I love that idea. And the fact, too, is that in Western culture, when you take a schizophrenic or when you take a psychotic person and you dull all the sensory input around them and you medicate them, it's just building up inside of them. Yeah. It's just building and building and building. And then it's like an electrical short. Like they just blow, right? They just blow up. Yeah. And that could be physical harm to themselves or others. Yeah. It can just be in what we call like a psychotic break, right? Yeah. Like, and that could be violent. And that can be very dangerous, which is why we have all these true crime things about these schizophrenics and like all these different people. But if you foster that mentality and that energy, like the Dagara people do, then that person becomes a highly respected and emulated person in their community. That's who they go to for answers. And that works really well for them. Yeah. So these are two totally polar opposite reactions.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I'm not saying don't take your medication.
Nope.
You know, I'm not saying don't do the things that, you know, your primary physician has suggested for you or prescribed for you, but also look into what somatic releases that you can find or what sensory releases you can find. Nothing's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how your body is naturally made. That's how spirit or creator, you know, like presented you this time on this earth at that place, you know, and that's, you're magical and you're powerful.
So wait, my kid, so it was, he was about, my oldest was like in 3rd grade. We were really struggling. School was bad. We'd done some occupational therapy. We'd like done some evaluations, but like he couldn't sit still. He couldn't learn. He's smart, but couldn't do school. And so we got him diagnosed. He's dyslexia, ADHD. We got the sensory support. And then, but he was feeling bad about himself. He would come home from school and feel really broken. And so like, that was the path for me I was like, we filled out the forms and I was like, oh, you're not supposed to get up and dance and during dinner you're supposed to sit and have your meal and not get up and move around? Huh, interesting. I didn't know that was like not normal. But it was really important for me that he not feel broken.
Yeah.
And so like a couple of things. One is that we like always framed it as your brain works differently. And so these things don't like, so that makes some things a challenge. You literally are living some things on hard mode at school, particularly with dyslexia, when we have a type of education system where even your science, you're reading.
Yeah.
You don't have to learn science that way. You can learn science like by doing.
By experimenting. Yeah.
Right. But we do have a society and an education system that's so focused. So like we got him the dyslexia tutoring. We had to like bring that skill up, but like made him not, it wasn't that he was broken.
Right.
But like, we also live in a society. We can work on changing it, but it's not going to be like changed for you because you need it. So like, how do we adapt ourselves to fit? But it's not because we're broken.
Right.
And then he came across a book series. It's by Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series. And he wrote these books because his own son had dyslexia and ADHD. And he didn't want him to feel broken. And so all of the demigods all have ADHD.
Yeah.
But like, because all the warriors on the battlefield would have had, like, because who do you want in a crisis? Man, you want an ADHD person because their brain is like, whoo, now I'm ready to go. And so like, it's like, of course they have this. And so I think like those are like, I've recommended that book to kids so that they don't feel broken.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation for representation of your community in literature.
Yeah.
And now it's in movies and stuff too.
Yeah. There's a series about to come out that my kids are geeked about.
Yeah, so Percy Jackson is a great start for that.
Yeah. And we like, you're not broken and you live in a society and you have to do what you have to do to survive. So like, if you're working full time and you're parenting, or maybe you're not, but like if what you're doing is like more than you can handle, like, yep, use those pharmaceuticals that you need. Like, yes.
Yeah.
And you're not broken. And like, how can you, I know people who have managed to radically change their lives. They live their life in a way where they don't need ADHD medication. Some of them don't think they have it or that it's not real anymore. And I was like, okay, great. That's because you've managed to create a life where it's not a barrier.
Yeah. You've managed to assess those challenges.
Right.
And find tools to deal with it.
It's my understanding, particularly of ADHD, that's the one I have the most experience with. It's only a disorder if it's a disorder in your life.
If it's disrupting.
If it's disrupting your life. Like, to have a spicy brain isn't inherently a problem, a medical diagnosis, unless it is impacting your life. And so there's like two things we do. Like, one, kind of push for the changes in society or the changes in your environment that support you, and then support you in other ways too.
Yeah, I think that, you know, like,
that's what I heard about this too, is that they were like, oh, we want to support these people.
Yes.
So then how do we as a community support this person whose needs are maybe a little different than ours?
Yeah.
And then they can be their good best self.
Yeah, as a community. And then they're an asset to the community.
Yes.
Wow, what a novel idea.
Yeah.
I think too that even shows like Love on the Spectrum on Netflix.
I haven't watched it yet.
It's so good. Okay, so I was a little concerned about watching it because I'm like, are they, you know, it's a reality TV show. Are they exploiting these people? You know, and but in watching it, it's just so authentic. And I think a lot of times in like reality, like love shows, it's so fake, right? Yeah. And it's just, you know, like Love is Blind or 90 Day Fiance.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just fake, you know? It's entertaining, makes me feel good about my life, but it's fake. Love on the Spectrum, though, these people truly have autism diagnoses and issues, and they are authentic and kind and pure to each other. They're all so polite, which is so beautiful to me because they've grasped on this rule of like, this is how we treat each other and this is how we talk to each other. Kindness first, respect, compassion, and they grasped onto that rule and they made it part of their lives. And so they all like pull each other's chairs out and they're all like, it's so nice to meet you. And like, even when they break up or move apart, they're like, I understand. That's your prerogative, you know? And they're smart and they're talented and they think about sex and love and like all these things. And that's things that it's human. When we just put people who are autistic in a box and say you can go to special ed class and that's where you belong, you know, like one of my best friends is a spastic quadriplegic, Grant, and he is he has issues being as cognitive as other people. One of my best friends, funniest guy, makes dirty jokes every time I see him. He's hilarious. Yeah. And he's an inspiration. Yeah. He really is. Because how he treats people and what he says to people. He was one of my inspirations for opening up the shop. Really. Yeah. Because I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he goes, it's not that you don't know. It's that you're going to. Oh. You know, it was like, you're just going to do this. Yeah. And so he's faced this adversity and he's used it. Yeah. As a point for Magick. Yes. To be like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And it's just so inspiring. And it's so inspiring to see, you know, the people on Love on the Spectrum or people with, you know, autism or neurodivergence in our community here succeeding and being happy and helping. Yeah. And it's like, why can't we all just be authentic?
So I
be our true selves.
I have a joke that everyone I know is either neurodivergent or queer. I don't know anyone who isn't one of those.
Yep.
So if you're friends with me, sorry. Pick your bubble. And
sometimes both.
Often.
A lot of times both.
Yep. But I also sometimes joke too at home that like people who aren't neurodivergent are NPCs, which like comes out of video gaming. So like a non-player character. Yes. Like, because the world works for them. They don't have, I don't know, it's kind of mean. I feel bad about it, but I don't understand neurotypicality, I guess. I don't understand, like, if this world right now in our society is like working for you, great, cool. Yeah. I don't understand it.
Yeah. There was a book my daughter was reading called The Unwanteds. And it was like a very neurotypical society. Everybody grew up and they worked for who they needed to work for, and they all got assigned to jobs and a partner, and they made babies, and like that was it. That was your life. Yeah. And then if you weren't part of that neurotypical, or if you danced or you drew or you like colored or did something that was atypical from their society, you were put to death. Like, that's how this book starts. Yeah. And it's like a young kid's book, you know?
YA books are so brutal.
And
they're good, but
so essentially everybody who was alternative got saved and sent to this other like magical castle land place where you could be creative, and things moved differently and they reacted differently. And so that community all worked together. And then the book goes on to like merge the two worlds together, which is awesome.
Right? That's what we're trying to do.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. Yeah. I do want to talk about one more thing about how you were saying that your son felt broken because he wasn't fitting into society. What this article with the Dagara people was saying is that in all of us really are different aspects that can potentially be opposites of each other. There's like a duality in people, and sometimes that can be conflicting. Yeah. And that can be really hard. Yeah. Right? But learning to live with that conflict, like within yourself, can make you feel broken. It could definitely make you feel like you're not, you know, like that harmony is not there, and that space isn't there. But again, they were you know, respecting and celebrating that duality inside of people. Do you feel a duality inside of yourself? Do you feel conflict within yourself?
Okay, so one, I'm a Libra, so like a lot of Libra.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like astrology a lot. I don't know a lot. I mean, I'm learning that, but like as I read my own chart. I'm like, oh, there's this polarity, there's this duality, there's these tensions. I literally spent my childhood traveling between my dad's house up here and my mom's house downstate. And I had these two separate homes and these two separate lives. And my dad really encouraged my artistic side. I'm not saying my mom didn't, she did, but like there was just other focuses. And then I was the only person in my school, in high school. I couldn't take the art class I wanted and the AP calc class I wanted because I was always very good at math and then artistic. And in my whole life, there has been this like artistic, spiritual, and then this like analytical, logical problem solving.
Yeah.
They feel often like I'm being pulled between the two.
Mm-hmm.
My undergrad's a BFA, and then I went and got a master's of information. I worked like, and there's this duality between like science and art. And like, I don't think that's real, but I feel it as two different poles inside of me.
Yeah, it definitely is treated like two different poles, right? So that you have this like very logical, educational, academic aspect, and then this other side, which is very flowy. So it's like this duality of masculine and feminine. There's like straight, corners and edges, straight lines, and then you have this curve and this flow to the art side of things. Not to say that there's not masculine aspects of art, and not to say there's not feminine aspects to science. But like they can work together too.
Right.
And like science is art and art is science.
They are.
They're the same. So I think it's a matter of semantics, it's a matter of rhetoric, it's a matter of how you're talking to each other, and talking to those two sides within yourself.
Yeah.
And understanding that both sides are necessary for you to find balance.
Yeah.
You need both sides.
When I didn't pursue any art in school, I was so unhappy.
Oh, yeah.
When I took 4 studios and didn't do anything quote unquote academic, I was drowning.
Yeah.
For me, every time I like on that teeter-totter go too far one way, I'm really unhappy. So for me, it's about finding the balance between the two in my life.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that there is a duality in everybody. I think that some people feel that duality more than others, and I think that society tries to put you in its own category. And if it says you're a scientist, you're a scientist, or if you're an artist, you're an artist. But there's no reason why you can't be both of those things.
Yeah.
So kind of, I encourage people to question society and question labels that they put on you, and learn how that you can modify those labels to work for you personally. That's a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
I would say like, don't get hung up on the rules of magic or the rules of spirituality. How you want to practice and how you want to do things is for you. That's the whole point of like the pagan path or like the spiritual path, is finding a way that spirituality works for you. So if that's like, running around your house or dancing or doing those things, then do those things.
Yeah. Find the things that aren't in that you start to get even a little bit of this feels connected, and like keep doing those, lean into those.
Yeah. Sometimes solitary work can be tricky for people who are like a little neurodivergent, because it's like the focus and the being held accountable, and like how do you like encourage yourself to do that? So go find a group. Go find a group. And I know that it's hard when you're an introvert. I get that. I totally get that. But find a safe place for you, whether that's through check your community boards. Like, community boards are awesome. Take a friend with you, and you guys can be awkward in the corner, and that's fine. Try to find like a metaphysical shop that is supportive and welcoming.
You have a lot here of different ways for people to engage with you and with the community. You make it pretty open to like, there's poetry, there's book club, there's like more maybe ritualistic stuff. Like, you have a lot here of ways in for people.
One of my greatest compliments I got was, I've been in my house for 6 months, and the only reason I came here was to be in this shop. And it was like, what? What? That's so powerful and so special. And I'm happy that they felt safe enough in my store to be here to participate in these things. The other thing is virtual classes, virtual things like that. Like, you can get into a class that has 20 people in it and not have to be the star of the show, Go in the woods. The woods are great, Find a couple people to go in the woods with you, or get a friend to like hold each other accountable, even virtually. If it's like, hey, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to have this reaction. I'm going to do this spell or this ritual.
Yeah.
I want to come back and tell you about it. Can I do that?
Yes.
And that way you can go back and you've held yourself accountable by doing that thing. And then you have to go tell your friend about it.
And I think too, when you tell another person about it, it maybe helps it feel more real.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't feel like, because your friend or another community can help affirm what you've done, right? You're not crazy.
Right.
You're just doing what feels good to you.
Yeah.
And what feels good to you might be different than what feels good to a neurotypical brain.
Yeah.
But embrace it and understand that you're magical and you're powerful and you're different in the best way. You're like the best unicorn, right? Like you might not be common. You might be rare.
Yeah.
Or extremely rare.
Yeah.
But you can be legendary too, right? Like you are powerful and you are unique in the best kind of way. Yeah. And you're here for a reason.
I think the biggest thing I have learned on my spiritual journey and like that I keep coming back to is like, what is it that I am and bring that's unique? Mm-hmm. And how do I bring more of that?
Yeah.
And that is like, you say like, oh, you're legendary. Yeah, like we all are.
Yeah, we all are. Society doesn't make us feel that way.
No.
And it makes us feel like we're a group unit, right? But we're not. We're made up of a bunch of individuals that have all these really cool powers and perspectives. I mean, some of the people on the autistic spectrum, like they can just rattle off like dates and names and tell me what day, date 7 years ago was on the calendar. They know if it's a Tuesday or not, you know, like it's amazing how these brains work and they're so special. I did, before we end here, I do want to mention a couple of creative leaders that are famous. Yeah. That have like neurodivergent brains. One, Einstein. The guy couldn't tie his shoes. Yep. Holding relationships for him was difficult, but like in having social interactions with people were really difficult. But Einstein is one of our greatest minds ever. Da Vinci slept an hour a night.
Weirdo.
If that.
I wish.
Talk about hyperfocus, right? Again, one of our most influential minds. In pop culture, we have Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory. So there's another representation in our community of these like really spicy brains that are really powerful and really strong and really smart. I love Young Sheldon too, that show, because it goes through like his life growing up and his trials and tribulations and that. And one of his mentors is somebody who is also neurodivergent, and he finds love and everything in that show. So those are good shows of representation in your community of people who are being just leading lives that are wonderful and beautiful and fruitful. Hunter S. Thompson, talk about like mental instability, but also the way that he saw the world and wrote about the world was fantastic. Howard Hughes is one of my favorites. I'm a big fan of Howard Hughes. I personally am very attracted to the disturbed genius. The creative genius who has like some kind of psychological issue. That's like my favorite. My favorite to read about, my favorite to learn about, because they have all these skills and these powers behind them, but they struggle with life, with like the typical life.
I know a lot of people right now who, I wish we had a better community support where they could be there, bring their art into the world, and their kindness and all of this, and that we could support some of the other things. We're so isolated. COVID made that worse too. In some ways, you had to be your everything. But we need to support each other, and where you can, lean into what is you, what feels good. And that's your path in. I think like, to answer the question, like that's your path in, is leaning into those things.
And not holding them in. Letting them out, expressing them, identifying them, being self-reflective, thinking about those things, and learning how you can use them in community and in society.
And try, if something isn't working, cool, ditch it, try something new.
Try something new.
Don't stick with it for too long. Eventually you need to learn to stick with things. Some things are hard. Meditation can be hard. But if it's really just not working, ditch it, try another thing. Find your ways in that are easy, and then persist on those things that are ins.
Yeah, absolutely. Claire, this has been awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I do want to reiterate again that we're not saying to just ditch your medication, go talk to your doctor. If you feel like you're having mental health or mental instabilities, there are definitely hotlines to call and people to talk to. We'll link those numbers in the show notes as well, because those are important. Reach out and talk to somebody if you're not feeling mentally stable too. That's really important. Don't just isolate. So, and then, I mean, take your meds when you're supposed to take your meds, talk to your doctor when you're supposed to talk to your doctor.
Yep.
But find these other activities that you can add in addition, these other, like, methods that can be helpful for
I think of taking my meds as,
it's a tool.
It's a tool. And it's also like, I tease it. It's like, I need, particularly my ADHD meds for capitalism. So I need these meds to exist in the society that we're in.
In the world, yes.
I do. They're like my supplement. They're like, I don't know, my ticket to surviving
it's your assimilation code.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Assimilate into society.
That's okay. Like, I'm not mad about it. Like,
right.
I mean,
there's great things about society too, but so I mean, there has to be some structure somewhere, and some people really need the structure.
Yeah. And even though you're not broken, that doesn't mean it isn't hard.
Right.
It is hard. I'm going to echo that it is hard. It's a hard path. And that's like, I don't ever want to say like, oh, you're just this like magical, beautiful, like superpowers. Like, that does not discount that it is hard.
It is hard. Yeah.
That's okay too. I mean, it's true.
It is. But we believe in you.
Yeah, you are Magick.
We think you can do it. We know you can do it.
Yeah, I don't know this.
And we're here for you.
Yeah.
Are there any platforms or places where people can find you? Do you want people to find you?
So I do have an Instagram. It's at Roxy Loon. Right now it's a lot of home renovation stuff. Not as much magic, but I do slip in there I've been posting a lot about my own grief work. So I've had some recent deaths. And so I'm going to be hopefully leaning into more of that. That's a really important journey for me.
I think it can be really helpful for other people to see other people dealing with grief, and they can work through it themselves by working through it with you.
My Instagram is not like Instagram worthy. I'm like, our kitchen's a mess, our house is a mess. Like, I'm real on it. So
it's perfect.
It's perfectly real.
It's life.
Yeah, it is.
It's authentic and organic, and I enjoy following your posts. Anywhere else?
No, I mean, I have a website, but I don't update it. It's on my goal for this year, maybe.
Yeah. I love it.
The sovereignty. I'm going to make time for myself, including those things.
Small bites to chew.
Yeah.
I like it. Awesome. Otherwise, you can find us here at the shop. Occasionally, Claire's hanging out or joining us in different classes and such. I do want to mention that we do have a class that we are hosting by one of our shop friends. Her name is Weber, and she's a social worker. Cool. And she teaches a class called Caring for Self, and it's help for the neurodivergent or disabled witch. So it talks about representation. It talks about how to find your magic, how to find your power.
Great.
There's a virtual aspect as well as an in-person aspect. Those classes can be found on our website at blessedbt.com, and it's listed under the events and appointments category there. So those are cool classes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is really cool. It's super cool. There's a virtual aspect too,
really
because
like that.
Not everybody can get here, and not everybody has the strength to get out and join another group. So,
I really appreciate that you do that.
Yeah, I was very excited when I was approached about that class opportunity. That was something I was like, absolutely, we're putting it out. So and then if you want to have one of your listener questions answered on the show, please feel free to email them here at bellamyblack333@gmail.com, or you can send them via snail mail, which is my favorite. And I love that because it's intention and words are powerful, you know? So you can send them right to the shop at 116 East Front Street. We are the South Suite. So we're located behind another unit here, and then it's Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. We'll list all of our handles and our mailing addresses and all the things in our show notes as well. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear your listener questions so we can bring in more awesome people to talk to. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find us there as well.
So many.
Or you can visit us here in the shop.
It's a nice place to visit.
Yeah. We have a couch.
It's a very cozy couch.
Yeah, come chill on the couch. All right, well, that is going to be our episode today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Bellamy Black, and I hope you have a nice day.
Before we conclude our episode, we want to talk to you about our feature business of the day, Charles and Reed Detroit-style pizza. These guys are no squares, but their pizzas are. Expertly baked in square pans and topped with a thick layer of rich sauce. Oh, and you gotta try their subs, salads, and specialty items. They are amazing. Located in the alleyway between Front and State Street, downtown Traverse City, Michigan. Order food to go or stop by for a beer and have a go at the bubble hockey table. Dan and the crew at Charles and Reed have been huge supporters of Blessed Be and Ask a Witch since day one. They are a small family-run business just living the dream of gifting the world with great pizza. Stop in and grab a slice today. 113 East Front Street, Traverse City, Michigan. Check our show notes for more details. Thank you, Charles and Reed, for your support.
This has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. We have a strong presence on the World Wide Web. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Check out our live recordings on our YouTube channel at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Handles are listed in the show notes. For a chance to meet Bellamy in person, visit Blessed Be Tea and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan.